Hello, hello, welcome. Happy Monday. Knock down this music a bit. I don't know what works for this. Probably something like that. That's probably good. How are you guys doing? Happy Monday. I know it's an earlier stream, at least earlier than I typically do, but that's because I have two church events this evening. So, because I have church events, I need to head over and be a part of those, and therefore I am doing an early stream. All right, what is up, Deep Dive? Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. How are you? Thanks for swinging by. And yeah, so like I said, a little earlier stream than we usually do, but it is needed so that I can get over to those church events. Happy Monday. Yes, you as well. You as well. Good, good. All right, guys. I am going to be preaching on, it's called the Pericope Adulterae. And this is the pretty famous passage in John chapter 8 where the woman gets caught in the act of adultery, and, you know, all the Pharisees, the scribes, they bring her before Jesus, and she's been caught in the very act. What are you going to do? And he says, he who is without sin cast the first stone, right? Now, I will tell you, in the past, I would not have preached this text. And that's because of my stance in the past on textual criticism. I, in the past, have taken a more text-critical position rather than majority text position, and because of that, do not think that this is part of what John originally wrote. And so I preached through Mark before. What is up, Fadu Recci? Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Yes, I'm speaking to that at this moment. And then also Giovanna Blitz. Hello, good to see you. Welcome, welcome. So a nice non-controversial text, exactly. But I want you guys to know that I have softened on that approach. If you go back to my, like I said, Gospel of Mark issue, I skipped the long ending of Mark. And I think that's Mark 12 through 20 or something. Well, the last chapter of Mark, Mark 16 verses 12 through 20 or something like that. I skipped it. And I just preached a sermon on textual criticism. Well, in this case, I actually want to talk a little bit about textual criticism, but then I'm going to preach the passage, which I haven't done in the past. So anyway, that's kind of my approach. And like I said, it's a little different than what I have usually done on this sort of topic. So going to be interesting to go through, and I'm looking forward to it. And I think it'll lead to some good discussion probably in the Q&A afterwards as well. Like I said, I have to leave early, so at the longest I can stream an hour and a half, probably not quite that long, just because got to get packed up and head over to the church. And like I said, I got a couple of church events I must attend tonight. So yeah, that's where we're at. Anyway, I hope you guys are doing well, and we'll see how we get by on this one. We'll see how we get by. Now, right off the rip, I feel like I have to cover whatever it is that, let's see. Oh, I'm trying to remember new text. Let me just open these. I forget the exact commentary name. It's this New Testament Text and Translation Commentary. I feel like I have to go here to start, and then we can go from there. He says, this passage is included in the NA 27 and UBS 4, but enclosed in double square brackets, and Westcott and Hort appears after John's Gospel. It is included in the Text Receptus at 753 to 811. So you can see all of these English translations, including the pericope after. So yeah, very interesting already. P39 is not noted in the critical apparatus of NA27 or UBS4 for the omission of 753 to 811. Nonetheless, it is quite likely that the manuscript did not contain this pericope, because extant pagination and uniform lettering allow for a reconstruction of the number of pages in the codex up to 814, and this number does not allow for the inclusion of 753 to 811. See my full discussion on P39. As for manuscripts, what is this? Alexandrinus and I don't know what C is. Ephrami Rescriptus. Though they both have the lacunae at this portion of John, careful calculations make it unlikely there was enough space in the original codices of both of these manuscripts to contain the story. So there you go. If Mel Gibson included this in his movie, then it must be original. There you go. That's how we know. That's how we know. Is it in The Chosen? Have you guys seen The Chosen? Is it in The Chosen? I have only watched the first season, so I'm not sure. Deep Dive says, my mentor, John Benzinger, took a similar approach to you, discuss the textual issues, and then preach the passage. Cool. That's my plan. That's the direction I'm likely to go. All right. Is not included in any of the earliest manuscripts, including the two earliest, 66 and 75. Let's see. Other witnesses to the exclusion of this passage, equally impressive, including the 4th century codices, Sinaiticus, Alexandrinus, Beze, or no, that's Vaticanus. And then I bet it is included in Beze. We'll see. Diatessaron, early versions, etc. When the story is inserted in later manuscripts, it appears in different places. In Luke, later in John, at the end of John, and when it does appear, it is often marked off by obeli or asterisks to signal its probable spuriousness. In most of the manuscripts, so I've got to talk about spuriousness. I have to define that. Spurious text. And let's use our tools, y'all, in Logos Pro Tools. What is a spurious text? Boom. Let's see what we get. Come on. We have got to wait a little bit longer, evidently. Maybe I spelt it wrong. It's throwing it off. Doesn't know what to do when I spell it wrong. When the story is inserted in later manuscripts, I already read that. Marginal note on NAB fits more naturally after Luke 21. The inclusion of this story in the New Testament text is a prime example of how the oral tradition, originally not included in the text, eventually found its way into the written text. In its oral form, the story must have been in circulation beginning in the early 2nd century. Papias may have been speaking about this incident when he expounded another story about a woman who was accused before the Lord of many sins. However, in the pericope of the adulteress, there is no mention of many sins, only one, that of adultery. Okay, interesting. Let's see. I'm wondering if I'm having connectivity issues, internet connectivity issues. It does. Something's going on here. Can you guys still see and hear me? I've got something locked up here. Looks like the stream is still going. But let's try this. Yeah, not good. Not good, not good. We've been having internet issues today. I'm wondering if that's what's going on here. I don't know. It's showing that it's going. Let's try this one more time. I don't show like losing frames or connectivity issues on my OBS, but that doesn't mean it's not happening. It doesn't mean it's not happening. I am showing instabilities on the streams themselves. I guess we just got to keep rolling. But it's a shame my search isn't working. All right, let's continue. According to Ehrman, a story about a condemned woman being rescued by Jesus was extant in written form as early as the 4th century in 3 different versions. Story where the religious leaders were trying to trap Jesus. Story of Jesus' intervention in an execution. My conjecture is that the popular version was first inserted by the scribe of Codex Beze. I told you. Not only because this is the earliest extant Greek manuscript to include the story, but also because the Bezean editor had a proclivity for enlarging the text. The Book of Acts, for example, in Beze is 1/10 larger than the Alexandrian. The Beze reviser was quite keen on filling in perceived gaps in the text. Perhaps he believed John's narrative was lacking an example of Jesus, both upholding the law while simultaneously showing forth grace, and thus supplied the story. That's very interesting. What is up, Cool Blaze? Good to see you. Welcome. How have you been? I hope you are well. I'm having some issues with a few of my programs. Hopefully the stream's coming through okay. But yeah, I hope you're doing well. Thanks for swinging by. Okay. Well, this search is not working. It is just not working. Let's, I I guess let's go further down. Not only is the external evidence against the Johannine authorship of the pericope about the adulteress, see above, so is the internal evidence. Cool Blaze says he was talking about the pericope yesterday with a Muslim and what it would mean for inerrancy, preservation, etc. How you doing, my tea-loving friend? I'm doing very well. How are you? It's good to see you. It's been a while. I hope you're doing well. Very good to see you. Okay. Well, external evidence, I need to talk about that as well. So I have to define spurious text, and then I also have to talk about what is internal and external evidence. Long time no see. Have you made up your mind on its authenticity yet? I wouldn't say I've made up my mind. What I would say is I heavily lean towards the text critical position, right? The idea that says it's not original. I heavily lean in that direction. But yes, you're correct. I am delving into that and trying to kind of figure it out. So that's where we're at. Yeah. There you go. Perfect. Well, I'm glad to hear it. I'm in good company. Alrighty. So we continue on. Westcott and Hort indicated the setting of John 7-8 is at Jerusalem during the Feast of Tabernacles. During this feast, the Jews would customarily pour water over a rock. I think I read this one. Yeah, I talked about this last time. Westcott and Hort's argument is that the pericope about the adulteress disrupts the continuity between the events. In addition to this argument, it can also be said the pericope concerning the adulteress interrupts the connection between 7:40 to 52 and 8:12 to 20. John 8:12 to 20 is Jesus' response to 7:52. When the text says he spoke to them again, it is clear that he was speaking to the Pharisees. So yeah, I like to think it's a true story, but probably not part of the original text. I think that's a fair approach, Cool Blaze, right? Because the fact that it exists, and I think I heard this from James White before, maybe it was somebody else, but the fact that it exists in so many different places, right? The fact that it's in Luke or in other manuscripts at the end of John, right? Seems to indicate that there was an oral tradition surrounding it. And even Comfort says that. He says, hey, right here, the inclusion of this story in the New Testament text is a prime example of how the oral tradition, originally not included in the text, eventually found its way into the written text. So I think there's something to be said for that. Okay. In 8:14, Jesus again refers to the fact the Pharisees did not know where he came from. They thought
your life is not in your hands. Your life is in the hands of God.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Cool Blaze 2 just resubbed for 16 months. 1 month,
awesome.
Let's go.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cool Blaze. I appreciate that. Much love. Yeah, indeed. Well, like you said, it's been a while, so I'm glad you're able to swing by. I hope things are going well for you. Okay, having said all this, it is very disappointing to realize that the pericope of the adulterous woman is included in the Nestle Aland text, even though it's set in double brackets to signify the editor's serious doubts about its place in the text. There can be little doubt that John never wrote it, and that it has no place whatsoever being in the text. Of course, it is very difficult to rid the Bible of spurious texts once they have gained a place in what people consider to be Holy Scripture. When the RSV was first published, this pericope was taken out of the text and placed in a footnote, but the outcry against this was so vehement that it was placed back in the text the next printing. The REB translators have moved the pericope to an appendix following the Gospel of John, just as was done by Westcott and Hort in their Greek text. But most English readers of the New Testament will not see any of these connections mentioned above because the pericope of the adulteress is still printed in the text between 752 and 812. True, the passage has been bracketed or marked off with single lines or set in italics, but there it stands, an obstacle to reading the true narrative of John's Gospel. Even worse, its presence in the text misrepresents the testimony of the extant manuscripts. And as long as it appears in the text of Greek editions and modern translations, readers will continue to think it is part of John's original text, and preachers will continue to expound on it without differentiating it from the rest of authentic Scripture. This is illustrated in a note in NABMG, which, after explaining the spuriousness of the pericope, then concludes the Catholic Church accepts this passage as canonical Scripture. However, it must be strongly stated that 753, 8-11 was not part of the Gospel of John, when this gospel was being canonized by the early church. There you go. So he's very strong against it, very strongly against it. And hey, fair enough. That's a stance to take, right? That's an acceptable stance. And again, I would generally lean in that direction. I just don't know that I'm as strong in my denunciation of said text. So I've got to talk about what is a spurious text. We've got to talk a little bit about external evidence, internal evidence, and then we've got to talk about some specific evidences for or against this passage. Okay. And maybe we'll talk about textual criticism in general. So I think all of those are appropriate things to treat, for sure. Those would all probably be pretty good. Hey guys, I'm going to try to improve my internet connection just a tad. I've just got a bunch of stuff that are not functioning for me. I'm on Wi-Fi right now. I'm going to try to go a direct connection. Give me 1 minute.